Daenerys Targaryen rode on a storm of wings and fire. The sky over King's Landing trembled with Drogon's roar, the wind tearing at her hair as they swept over the shattered plain before the city gates. Below, the ordered gold of the Golden Company had already begun to break. The line that had once looked so pristine, so unshakable, was now a jagged smear of men and horses fleeing in every direction from the black shadow scything overhead. She felt Drogon's muscles coil and release beneath her, the heat of his rage thrumming through the saddle into her bones. His breath was fire waiting for a word. One word, and the cell's words would become ash, another line in the book of crimes paid for by Dragonflame. She had spoken that word in so many cities before. Here it wanted to leap from her tongue more than ever. Missandei's last word rang in her skull. Dracarys. Daenerys clenched her jaw and guided Drogon into another dive, not toward the fleeing remnants of the Golden Company. Those men were already broken, but toward the line of scorpions along the walls, black iron mouths pointing skyward, waiting for their chance. She remembered the barbed bolt that had torn through Rhaegal's neck, the way his body had twisted as he fell out of the sky. There would be no such chance again. Now, she whispered, though Drogon needed no command. Fire exploded from his jaws, a blinding torrent that washed across the nearest scorpion, turning wood to cinders and iron to slag. Men fell screaming, some flung from the parapets, some contorted where they stood. Daenerys did not watch them individually. They were shapes, threats, pieces in a game that had taken too much from her already. The ground forces surged as the defenses burned. She caught glimpses through the smoke and chaos. Unsullied spears advancing in perfect lines, Dothraki riders whooping as they swept around fleeing sellswards, northern men with grim, set faces moving forward behind their shields. Somewhere in that mass of men was Jon Snow, his dark hair and black leathers more familiar to her than the White City below. She circled higher, giving the ground to Grey Worm and Jon Snow as they pressed toward the main gate. The Golden Company's proud elephant standards lay trampled in the dirt, their famed discipline dissolving into panic. A group of their officers tried to form a rallying square in the center, but one sweep of Drogon's flame shattered their formation, men dropping weapons as they ran. The gates of King's Landing loomed ahead, massive oak and iron reinforced with years of Lannister gold, now blackened and splintering from earlier volleys. As she banked, Daenerys saw small figures racing toward them with a battering ram. Northmen sweating and swearing, Davos Seaworth shouting orders, Grey Worm standing near enough that she could see the gleam of his spearpoint catching light. She could destroy those gates herself in a heartbeat. One breath from Drogon and the way into the city would be open, a wound for her armies to pour through. The Red Keep rose behind the walls, its towers a familiar silhouette from so many dreams and nightmares. Above it all, the bells hung silent. Every moment they remained silent, more of her people died. Daenerys tightened her grip on the saddle and guided Drogon into another searing pass along the walls, smashing a second cluster of scorpions. In the claustrophobic streets below, she saw tiny flashes of movement. Civilians rushing for cover, mothers pulling children into doorways, old men stumbling as they tried to flee the advancing battle. They were not her enemies. Not yet. Not unless she decided they were. A crossbow bolt glanced off Drogon's scales, barely noticed. Shouts rose from the walls and fell away under the roar of fire. Daenerys forced herself to focus on the defenses, on the soldiers, on the path her armies carved toward the heart of the city. The bells would ring. They must ring. Only then, she told herself, would the true test begin. Jon Snow smelled fear before he saw it. The reek of sweat and panic and old piss hung heavy in the air just inside the shattered outer gate, thick as the smoke that drifted down from the burning scorpions above. The Golden Company had broken before them. What remained now were Lannister men, their red and gold dulled by grime, clustered in a last line across the wide street that led deeper into King's Landing. "Shields!" Jon shouted, his voice raw from smoke. The call passed down the line of northern soldiers, the thud of wood and iron snapping into place a heartbeat later. "Hold!" Grey Worm stood just ahead of him with the Unsullied. his spear angled toward the tight cluster of Lannister guards. The eunuch commander's face was a mask, unreadable. But Jon knew there was fire behind that stillness. He had seen it when Missandei died, standing on that bloody cliff above the sea. He had felt it in the silence that had followed. The Lannister line wavered. The men were not cowards. They had stood on these walls for years, secure behind their height and their gold. But dragons had melted their defenses, Sel's words had fled, and the ground shook with every distant impact of Drogon's fire. Some clutched their swords too tight. Others glanced over their shoulders, as if expecting reinforcements that were not coming. "Lay down your arms," Jon called out, stepping a little beyond the safety of the shield wall. Davos Seaworth made a face and muttered something about bloody fools, but he followed, sword drawn but lowered. "It's done. Open the way and you'll be spared." He wasn't sure he could guarantee that last part. Not with the Unsullied beside him, not with Dothraki further back already restless for blood. But his voice carried a certainty he did not feel, the same tone he had used on the wall when convincing frightened boys to face the darkness beyond. A grizzled Lannister sergeant at the center of the line spat on the ground. "We swore to Queen Cersei," he said, knuckles white on his sword hilt. "We don't yield to invaders." "She lost," Davos said. "You didn't. Not yet. There's a difference." Above them, Drogon's roar rolled like thunder, followed by another blossom of fire along the wall. Men flinched, even Jon, though he tried not to show it. "The bells?" One of the younger Lannister men whispered, audible in the sudden lull. "If the bells ring, that's surrender, isn't it?" Jon seized it. "Aye," he said, "rung for you and for the small folk behind you. Drop your weapons now and we'll push for the bells. This doesn't have to end with bodies stacked in your own streets." Grey Worm said nothing. Jon could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. The commander's eyes were fixed on the Lannister line, spear poised as if he meant to charge them himself if they refused. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the sergeant looked up at the sky, watched Drogon wheel in a tight circle above the Red Keep, and something inside him cracked. His sword tip dipped, hit the ground, and stayed there. One by one, the men beside him followed. Shields lowered, weapons dropped to the cobbles with clattering, reluctant finality. "Back," Jon said quickly to his own men, before some nervous northern archer loosed an arrow out of habit or hatred. "Give them space." The gate was theirs. Beyond that line, down the long avenue toward the great September's distant dome and the shadow of the Red Keep, the city lay in fearful stillness. Faces peered from shuttered windows and dark alleys, eyes wide, children clinging to mothers' skirts. Jon turned to Grey Worm. "We go for the bells," he said. "We force the surrender. Once they ring, the fighting stops. Do you understand?" Grey Worm looked at him, and for the first time Jon realized how thin the man had become. Grief had carved lines around his mouth, tension etched across his forehead. "Missandei of Noth died in chains," Grey Worm said quietly. "Queen Daenerys Stormborn gave us freedom. She will have this city." "She'll have it?" Jon said, too quickly, afraid of losing the fragile hold he had. "But not burned. Not if there's another way. Help me ring those bells." For a heartbeat longer, Grey Worm held his gaze, something like judgment passing between them. Then he nodded once, curt. "Unsullied will clear the way," he said. "You will go with them. We will reach the bells." They moved forward, slowly at first, then faster as word of the gate's fall spread through the Lannister ranks. Men dashed away from the walls, some casting down shields, others ripping off their crimson cloaks as if the color itself would condemn them. Somewhere behind them, the Dothraki began to howl, impatient and hungry for the kill. Jon grimaced. The city could be won in a single stroke of mercy or lost in an afternoon of blood. All that lay between those futures were a few hundred yards of streets, a set of bells, and the choices of a dragon queen circling above. The city lay beneath Daenerys Targaryen like a board full of pieces, every street a line, every alley a hidden square. For years she had dreamed of this view. The red keep below her, the sprawl of King's Landing spread out like a fan, the bells ready to sing her triumph. In her dreams, she had ridden above cheering crowds and banners bearing the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen, the people calling out her name in joy. Now smoke smeared the sky, and the cheers were screams. From this height she could see everything. Lannister men tearing off their cloaks and fleeing down side streets. A cluster of Unsullied fanning out through a market square, shields raised as if expecting arrow fire at any moment. Northern soldiers moving more slowly, wary of stray blades and of stepping on the dead. Pale faces stared upward from courtyards and windows, too small for her to tell one from another. Small folk, innocent, guilty, both neither. Regal should have been here, flying at her side. She could see, in her mind's eye, the green of his scales flashing in the sun, could almost hear his answering roar. Instead, she had the memory of his limp body plunging into the sea, blown apart by iron and hatred. Missandei should have been here, standing at her left hand with that soft, steady voice, translating the shape of this city into words that made sense. Jorah Mormont should have been at her right, grumbling about risk and honor, insisting on riding beside her into battle. All of them had been taken from her. One by one, the world had stripped her of those who loved her without question. "They will fear you," Cersei Lannister had said once, back in Dragonstone. "They will never love you." Cersei had been wrong about many things, but that had not been one of them. Below, the avenue leading from the gate suddenly shifted. Jon Snow and Grey Worm had moved beyond the first Lannister line. She could see the dark knot of Unsullied pushing deeper, their formation like a dagger sliding into the city's heart. Farther still, the Great September rose above the rooftops, its bell tower cutting a clean line against the sky. The bells looked small from here, fragile, but their sound would carry across the city, a single peal that said, "Enough." Drogon moved restlessly beneath her, wings beating the air in short, impatient strokes. He smelled blood and fear and smoke. Rage poured off him in waves, drawn from her, answered by him. A loop of fury they fed each other. "I know," she murmured, laying a hand along the ridge of his neck. His scales were warm under her palm, the heat pulsing from deep within. "I know what they've done to us." She saw it all again, not just here, but across the narrow sea. Slavers nailed to mile markers in Meereen. The sons of the Harpy, masked and silent as they butchered freedmen in the dark. The noble sneers when she had spoken of breaking chains. Every city had required fire before it bent. Mercy had bought her nothing but betrayal. She could burn this city and be done. Cersei Lannister, the woman who had murdered her friend and child, was somewhere inside that red stone fortress. Fire could reach her. Fire could scour away every trace of those who had laughed when Missandei died. "They will love you," she told herself, but the words rang hollow. No, that was not it anymore, was it? Love had fled her one by one. What remained was the promise she had made to herself when she first stepped into the fire and came out with dragons, to build a better world from the bones of the old. In that better world, would there be room for burned children in the streets of King's Landing, their small hands fused to melted stone? Daenerys shut her eyes. For an instant she saw the city below as it might be after an hour of dragonfire. Rooftops blazing, alleyways glowing like open furnaces, people running like ants on a skillet. She saw Jon Snow, his face upturned, eyes filled not with awe but with horror. The bells remained silent. No one had rung them yet. No one had surrendered. Why should she wait for them to admit defeat? Why should their pride dictate how many of her soldiers died in these streets? Because if she burned them all before she gave them a chance, she would be what her enemies already called her. "Ring," she whispered, though no one could hear her from up here. "Ring, damn you." As if her fury reached down into the stone, the first bell tolled. It started as a faint vibration through the air, a tremor rather than a sound. Then the note swelled, deep and sonorous, rippling out from the Great September's tower. Another bell took up the call, and another, until the sky above King's Landing seemed to hum with surrender. The bells were not singing her name. They were pleading, begging. Drogon roared, the sound overlapping with the bells. Anger and exultation tangled. Daenerys opened her eyes as the city below changed in an instant. Lannister soldiers dropping their weapons outright, some falling to their knees. Northern and Reach men halting mid-step, looking around in confusion. A Dothraki rider pulling his horse up short, torn between momentum and the clear, ancient meaning of that sound. It would be so easy to ignore it, to descend on wings of fire and make this place a monument to what happened to those who hurt her. Instead, Daenerys turned Drogon's head not toward the packed streets of the city, but toward the Red Keep and the wildfire hidden beneath it. The bells were supposed to be theirs. Cersei Lannister had always imagined the bells of King's Landing ringing for her victory or her funeral, not for someone else's terms. Yet here they were, tolling surrender around her, each note a blow to the armor of certainty she had wrapped around herself thinner and thinner as the days passed. She stood on the balcony overlooking the main courtyard of the Red Keep, fingers white on the carved stone rail. From here, she could see the city's rooftops trembling under the shudder of each bell's stroke. Smoke curled from the outer walls where the scorpions had burned. Men ran like ants near the gate, the patterns of their movements too small to read. "Your Grace," Qyburn said quietly, hovering at her shoulder like an anxious crow. "The bells, they were rung without our command." "I can hear that," Cersei snapped. Her eyes were fixed on the sky, on the black shape hovering above them. Drogon's wings beat slowly, powerful strokes that kept him suspended in place, a dark blot against the gray-blue. Daenerys Targaryen was up there somewhere, a silver-haired speck astride the beast. One woman, one invader. So much of Cersei's life, her children, her father, the entirety of her bid to cling to power, reduced to a contest with a single foreign queen. "The scorpions on the walls are lost," Qyburn continued, his voice almost gentle in its understatement. "Most of the fleet is sunk. The Golden Company has broken. Our last reserves are within the keep itself. So we still have men," Cersei said. "We have loyal guards. We have Ser Gregor." She glanced back. The mountain loomed in the shadows just inside the chamber, plate armor darkened, pale eyes empty behind his helm. Her monster, her answer to the dragons. "We also have the wildfire, Your Grace," Qyburn said. "Caches throughout the city, as requested." A thin smile touched Cersei's lips. Wildfire had saved her once before, when the High Sparrow and half the nobility of the capital had gone up in emerald flame. Then, she had watched the sept explode from this very balcony, had felt the vibration of that righteous destruction through the soles of her feet. Wildfire didn't care who it burned. That was part of its beauty. "Perhaps," she said slowly, tasting the word, "the Targaryen girl would like to see what true fire looks like." "If the caches are ignited now," Qyburn said, still in that same cautious tone, "they will not distinguish between her people and yours. The Red Keep could withstand some of it, but the lower city..." Cersei's grip tightened. "She brings foreign hordes to sack my city. Do you think she cares who dies in the lower city?" As if in answer, Drogon shifted in the air. He moved not toward the crowded streets, but toward the keep itself, dipping low enough that Cersei could see the molten glow in his throat. "Your Grace," Qyburn said, and there was a note in his voice she had never heard before. Fear. "We must consider the dragon dove," and for a heartbeat Cersei was sure he was coming for her personally. Instead, he flew past the balcony, close enough that the wind of his passage nearly knocked her off her feet, and loosed his fire along the outer curtain of the Red Keep, where several hidden scorpions had been repositioned. Stone blackened, parapets crumbled. Men were reduced to silhouettes of pain and then nothing at all. "What is she doing?" Cersei whispered, stunned despite herself. "Destroying your last line of defense," Qyburn said. "But not the city." The bells continued to ring. Surrender, surrender, surrender. It was an old rule, older than Cersei's petty games, older than the Baratheons and the Targaryens and every cycle of power. When a city's bells rang like that, The attacking army was meant to stay its hand. To ignore that call and burn anyway was to name oneself a butcher in the eyes of gods and men. Cersei had long since stopped caring about the gods. Men's eyes, however, still meant something, even if only as tools. She could burn them all, she said. It wasn't quite a question. She could, Qyburn agreed. Yet she is not. Damn the girl. Damn her for finding the one path that hurt more than simple destruction. If the Dragon Queen burned King's Landing to ashes, Cersei could use that. The story would become legend. A foreign tyrant, mad with grief, slaughtering an entire city. The rest of Westeros would rise against her in righteous fury. Cersei might die, but her enemies would follow. If Daenerys Targaryen spared the city, took the Red Keep, and offered justice instead of ruin, what then? Cersei felt something rise in her throat, something uncomfortably close to panic. "Where is Jaime?" she demanded. "He should be here," he promised. Qyburn hesitated, a flicker of unease crossing his features. "Our scouts did not find Lord Jaime Lannister among the defenders on the wall," he said. "There have been reports of a one-handed knight near the river gate. But, Cersei said, her voice gone cold. "But it may be too late for him to reach us," Qyburn finished. The dragon wheeled again, slower this time. Drogon landed on the outer edge of the courtyard with a thunderous impact, claws gouging stone. His head swung toward the balcony, nostrils flaring, teeth bared. Behind him, just beyond the lip of the wall, Cersei saw a glimpse of another figure. A woman in leather and armor, small beside the beast yet unmistakable, silver hair whipping in the wind. Queen Daenerys Targaryen had not come to burn the city. She had come for the Red Keep. The courtyard of the Red Keep had seen kings crowned and traitors executed. It had never seen anything like this. Drogon crouched in the center, tail coiled, wings partly unfurled in a posture that was half readiness, half threat. His breath steamed in the cooling evening air, wisps of smoke curling from his nostrils. Around him, unsullied stood in a silent, deadly ring, spears angled outward. Behind them, a looser arc of northern men and a scattering of Stormlanders and Reachmen held their ground, eyes flicking nervously from dragon to walls to doorways. Daenerys Targaryen stood at the forefront, bareheaded, her silver braids clinging to her shoulders with sweat and soot. Blood, not hers, spattered her leathers. The bells had quieted now, leaving a ringing silence in their wake. It seemed to Daenerys as if the entire city were holding its breath. The Red Keep's main doors opened with a slow, heavy groan. For a moment there was only darkness beyond. Then Qyburn emerged, pale and stiff, carrying a white banner that looked as if it had been cut down from some decorative curtain. Behind him came Ser Gregor Clegane, looming in his dark armor, and then Cersei Lannister herself, in a gown the color of dried blood, her crown still firmly in place. Daenerys watched her descend the steps. Cersei's hair was shorter than Daenerys remembered from Dragonstone, cropped in a pragmatic lion's mane around her face, but her eyes were the same, green and sharp and impenetrable. Pride wrapped around her like armor. "My lords," Qyburn called, his voice surprisingly clear. "Her Grace, Queen Cersei of House Lannister wishes..." "The city has surrendered," Daenerys said, her voice cutting across his. She did not shout. She didn't need to. The courtyard's acoustics carried every word. The bells rang. Your men threw down their swords. Cersei stepped past Qyburn, leaving the white banner to droop limply in his hands. For a moment she simply stood there, taking in the dragon, the spearmen, the gathered host. Her gaze flicked to Jon Snow, who had come up from the city with Grey Worm and now stood just behind and to Daenerys' right, his expression grim. "King's Landing may surrender," Cersei said. "I do not." Drogon hissed, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the stone underfoot. Daenerys lifted a hand without looking back, and he stilled, though his eyes never left the Lannister queen. "This isn't a game of words," Daenerys said. "You are beaten. Your scorpions are ash. Your sellswords are dead or fled. Your people have laid down their arms." "My people?" Cersei laughed, a short, bitter sound. You mean the small folk who cursed my name when there was no bread in the markets, who cheered Ned Stark's death and Robert's tourneys and whatever king sat the Iron Throne that week. Those people, her gaze sharpened on Daenerys. They will cheer you now, or pretend to, until the day they cheer someone else. That is what they are. They are the ones who suffer when rulers fight, Daenerys said, thinking of charred bones in Meereen alleyways, of freedmen strung up as warnings. They are the ones who pay when queens cling to power at any cost. You speak as if you are not a queen, Cersei said. Daenerys took a step forward. The Unsullied shifted in unison, widening the gap, giving her room. I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, she said, letting the litany steady her. Rightful heir to the Iron Throne, breaker of chains, mother of dragons. You murdered my friend Missandei of Noth after she came to you under a flag of truce. You ordered my child Regal shot from the sky. You used wildfire on your own people at the September of Baelor. Your reign has been one of fear and slaughter. Cersei's jaw tightened at the mention of the September, but she did not look away. You burned men alive in Meereen, she said. You crucified nobles without trial. I gave them justice, Daenerys snapped. Old arguments, old blood. You gave this city nothing but fire and lies. The city still stands, Cersei said. Her eyes flicked to Drogon. For now, for a heartbeat, they simply stared at one another. Two women bound together by blood and destiny and hatred. Around them, the assembled men shifted, armor clinking softly. Qyburn looked like he wanted to vanish into the stone. Ser Gregor loomed implacable as a wall. We can end this another way, Jon Snow said suddenly, stepping up beside Daenerys. His voice was low, controlled, but she heard the urgency in it. Cersei Lannister, you can yield. Not just the city, yourself. Cersei turned her gaze to him with slow, cutting curiosity. And you are Jon Snow, he said, of House Stark, king in the north. He hesitated, then added, no longer. I came here for the living, to end this war before more people die. Cersei's lip curled. You bend quickly, Northern King. I bent, Jon said, and there was flint in his voice now. For my people, not for her. He nodded toward Daenerys. And not for you. Daenerys felt a flicker of discomfort at that, but let it pass. This was not the time to question loyalties spoken in haste. If you yield, Jon continued, you'll be taken alive, tried. The realm can decide your fate. Your men can go home instead of dying in these courtyards and streets. A trial, Cersei repeated. In front of what? Your pretty new queen? Her foreign legions? The wolves from the north who would see my head on a spike. She shook her head. I know what your trial means. It means you might live, Daenerys said. Your child might live. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Cersei's hand moved, almost unconsciously, to her stomach. So you know, Cersei said softly. Of course you do. Varys had his little birds. Tyrion talks too much when he drinks. Daenerys said nothing. She kept her face as still as she could. The knowledge tasted sour now. This woman had used unborn children as shields before. Your child is innocent, Daenerys said. You are not. So you say, Cersei murmured. Silence stretched, taut as a drawn bow. Then Cersei's shoulders slumped a fraction, the barest concession. If I yield, she said, you will not burn this city. I will not burn it, Daenerys said. The words came easier than she'd expected. Perhaps because the decision had already been made the moment she turned Drogon away from the streets. You'll take my crown, Cersei said. My life. Your crown, yes, Daenerys said. Your life will be decided in open court, before the realm. Cersei gave a small, mirthless smile. A spectacle, then. Fitting. Something in her had broken. Daenerys saw it now, a hairline fracture in the marble of Cersei's certainty. It did not make the woman smaller or safer. It only made her human, and that was almost worse. Cersei looked past Daenerys, as if searching the crowd. For a heartbeat, her expression shifted. Hope, desperation, something like love, all flaring and dying too quickly to name. Jaime Lannister was not there. "I yield," Cersei Lannister said, and the words seemed to cost her blood. "King's Landing is yours." Chains had a way of equalizing people. Cersei Lannister walked with her head high, but the manacles around her wrists clinked with each step, and there was no mistaking their weight. The Lannister guards who had once stood between her and the world now moved aside as Unsullied approached, taking their swords with impassive efficiency. Some Lannister men resisted, hands tightening on hilts, but the sight of Drogon's great head swinging lazily nearby stilled most defiance. Daenerys watched as Grey Worm gestured, and two Unsullied stepped forward to take position at either side of Cersei. The Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, so she had named herself, did not flinch when they took her arms. She did, however, shoot a look at Daenerys that could have flayed flesh. "Treat her as a prisoner of rank," Daenerys said, loud enough for the men closest to hear. "She is to be confined, not harmed. Anyone who touches her without order answers to me." Grey Worm glanced at her, then at Cersei. "Yes, Your Grace," he said. The title still felt unfamiliar to Daenerys. Even now, on Dragonstone it had been a promise. Here it was something harder, heavier. "She deserves worse," one of the northern men muttered behind Jon Snow. Daenerys caught the words, saw Jon turn to silence him with a sharp look. "There'll be time enough for justice," Jon said. "For now, we're done spilling blood." His gaze shifted to Grey Worm, and Daenerys felt the tension between them like two drawn blades crossing. Grey Worm's jaw worked once, barely visible under his helmet. "Unsullied will secure the keep," he said. "We will remove Lannister weapons, Lannister banners, Lannister threats. Try not to remove any Lannister heads unless they fight you," Davos Seaworth said wearily. A faint ripple of humor tugged at the corners of some mouths, but it faded quickly. Too many bodies lay cooling outside these walls. Too much smoke hung in the air. Daenerys stepped closer to Drogon, resting a hand against his massive jaw. He rumbled softly, leaning into her touch like a cat seeking reassurance. She knew he could feel her heart still pounding, could taste the aftermath of the choice she'd made. "You spared them," some part of her whispered. "You spared the city." Another voice, not her father's, but something close, hissed back. "And what did that buy you, little girl? Gratitude? Or fear of a different kind?" She pushed it away. Later, she could question herself. For now, she needed to move. "Jon," she said, turning, "go down into the city. Make sure the soldiers understand the fighting is over. No looting, no rapes. Anyone who disobeys." She trailed off, remembering the Sons of the Harpy, the days when she had tried to restrain her forces and been mocked for weakness. Westeros might not be Slaver's Bay, but men were men everywhere. "Anyone who disobeys is punished," Jon said. I'll see to it." His eyes met hers briefly. In them, she saw relief and confusion, admiration and worry. He had expected her to burn the city. She'd seen it in his haunted looks the last few days. Perhaps part of her had expected it as well. "You did the right thing," he said softly, too low for anyone else to hear. "Did I?" she asked, before she could stop herself. He hesitated, as if the question had caught him off guard. "You could have burned them all," he said. "You didn't. That's more than some kings would have done. Aerys would have burned them with wildfire and laughed. Robert would have smashed open the gates and let his men take what they liked, then blamed them afterward. Cersei had already proven what she was willing to do with green fire. "I am not some king," Daenerys said. "I am their queen." Jon nodded once, then turned to go. Grey Worm watched him leave, his expression unreadable. "Commander," Daenerys said, drawing Grey Worm's attention back. "Once the keep is secured, have your men help the northern soldiers maintain order in the city. No more killing unless attacked. The people have surrendered. They are under my protection now." Grey Worm's mouth tightened. Some of these people cheered when Missandei of Noth died, he said quietly. Some, Daenerys agreed. Not all. Not the children. Not the ones who had no choice. She searched his face, looking for the man who had once stood in the pyramid with Missandei at his side, learning how to be something other than a weapon. We are not here to become what we hate. He held her gaze for a long, measuring moment. Unsullied follow orders, he said at last. It wasn't a promise of understanding, not exactly, but it was something. Enough for now. As Grey Worm moved off to organize his men, Daenerys looked up at the towers of the Red Keep. The windows stared back like blind eyes. Somewhere within lay the throne that had cast its shadow across her entire life. For the first time, it was truly within her reach. The city still burned at the edges. People cried, somewhere she couldn't see. The smell of blood didn't care about crowns. She drew in a long, steadying breath. "Come, Drogon," she murmured. "We're not finished yet." The city felt different with the bells silent. Without their constant tolling, a ragged chorus of other sounds rose to fill the space. Distant shouts, the crackle of burning timbers, the sobbing of children too frightened to hide their fear. It was not peace, not yet, but it was something short of open war. Jon Snow moved through a narrow street that opened into a market square, his boots crunching on broken pottery and spilled grain. A fruit stand had collapsed against a wall, oranges and apples crushed underfoot, their sweet smell gone sour in the heat. A dog slunk between barrels, ribs showing, nose low. "Spread out," Jon said to the men behind him. "Pairs. No one goes off alone. If you see fighting, you stop it. I don't care whose sigil is on whose chest." He had a mixed group with him now. Northerners in fur-trimmed cloaks already stifling under the southern heat, a handful of Stormlanders wearing patched mail, and several unsullied, their armor gleaming even in the smoke. It was an odd thing to see men of so many different lands standing shoulder to shoulder, all of them looking to him for direction. In the square, a line of Lannister soldiers stood under guard, their spears stacked neatly before them. Some had stripped off their red cloaks, as if that alone might change who they were. Others clung to them like shrouds. Their eyes followed Jon as he approached. "Who's in charge here?" Jon called. A woman stepped forward, surprising him. She was older, with graying hair pulled back under a dented helm, a scar along one cheek. Her armor was careworn but well-maintained, her sword belted at a precise angle even now. "I was," she said, "Ser Janis Hill, or what passes for it these days." Jon nodded. "Your men have surrendered. They'll be disarmed and confined under guard until the Queen decides their fate." Ser Janis's mouth twitched. "Which queen is that today?" "Queen Daenerys Targaryen," Jon said. "A Targaryen," she mused. "Maida told me stories about the old king. Aerys said he liked to watch men burn. Thought they screamed pretty." "This one didn't burn your city," Jon said. "No," she said. "Not today." The implied question hung between them. What about tomorrow? Jon forced himself not to bristle. He understood her suspicion. If he were in her place, if he'd watched dragons circle above Winterfell the way they circled above this city, would he have trusted foreign mercy? "Your men did as they were told," he said. "They laid down arms when the bells rang. Make sure they keep doing as they're told. That'll help when decisions are made." "And what of the others?" she asked, glancing toward a knot of small folk huddled near a well. "The ones who had nothing to do with this except being born here?" Jon followed her gaze. Women and old men, mostly, with a scattering of children peering out from behind their legs. Soot streaked their faces. One boy clutched a wooden sword with both hands, his knuckles white. "They're under the Queen's protection now," Jon said. He raised his voice slightly. "All of you, there'll be no taking of goods or bodies. If any man tries, any man at all, he's punished. Understand?" A murmur ran through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, others desperate. "Words are wind, M-Lord," one older man called. "We heard the same from Robert's lot when they came through. Didn't stop half our street getting." He choked on the rest. A woman beside him put a hand on his arm. "I'm not Robert," Jon said. "You're not the one they're afraid of," Ser Janis said quietly, so only he could hear. "The Dragon Queen spared us today. Good. But folk will sleep with one eye to the sky all the same." He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he turned to the Unsullied nearest him. "Make sure no one harms these people," he said. "If any of my men do wrong, you tell me. If any of yours. Unsullied do not steal or rape," the soldier said, voice flat. "Good," Jon said. "Then we'll make sure no one else does either." As he moved on, weaving through alleys choked with frightened faces and hasty barricades, he thought of Daenerys in the courtyard, of the way she'd hesitated when he told her she'd done the right thing. He thought of the look in Grey Worm's eyes when Missandei died, and the tightness in his jaw today. Mercy was not as simple as ringing bells and sheathing swords. Mercy had to be guarded, enforced, chosen again and again in 100 small moments when it would be easier to give in to anger. Jon had seen what happened when men chose the other path. The battle of the bastards had been scored into his bones. The madness, the tunnel vision, the way the world narrowed to a single point of rage. He had clawed his way through that once. He would not let this city fall into the same darkness if he could help it. Arya Stark looked as if the city had tried to swallow her and failed. Soot streaked her cheekbones and darkened the hollows beneath her eyes. There was a smear of blood along one sleeve, too high and too thin to be hers. Needle hung at her hip, its narrow blade reddened near the hilt. Behind her, 2 Lannister guards lay slumped against a wall, their throats neatly opened. "You were supposed to be in Winterfell," Jon Snow said. "I was," Arya said. Then the Dragon Queen marched south. "Sansa Stark isn't wrong about much," her mouth twitched. "But she's wrong if she thinks I'm going to sit in a tower while the people who hurt our family go unpunished." Jon glanced behind her at the bodies. "Cersei Lannister surrendered," he said. "She's in chains. There'll be a trial." "She deserved the pointy end," Arya said flatly. "But I suppose chains will do. For now." Something in her tone made it clear she'd already weighed the question of killing Cersei and found no way, today, to make it happen without being burned or quartered. Arya had always been able to step back from a plan if it proved impossible. But Jon knew she remembered every name on her list, even the ones crossed out in blood. "The Queen spared the city," Jon said. "You saw that." "I saw her circling," Arya said. "Thought for a bit she was going to burn us all. Felt like standing under a storm waiting to see where the lightning hits." "But she didn't," Jon said. "No," Arya agreed. "She didn't." The way she said it held a certain wary respect. Arya understood hard choices. She also understood how narrow the line was between justice and cruelty. "Are you hurt?" Jon asked. She shook her head. "I've been in worse places than this. Flea Bottom hasn't changed much since Father walked through here with his men. Still stinks." Jon almost smiled. "You should come to the keep," he said. "Sansa will want to know you're safe. And we're gonna need sharp eyes. People we can trust." "You mean when you and the Dragon Queen start deciding who gets to live in the new world?" Arya tilted her head. "You look tired, Jon." "So do you," he said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I saw what almost happened," she said. "On that dragon, in her eyes. She was ready to burn it all." "She didn't," Jon replied, more sharply than he intended. "I know," Arya said. "That's the only reason I'm talking to you instead of sneaking into the Red Keep right now with a knife." Her expression softened a fraction. "You've always wanted to save people," she said, "even when they don't deserve it. I suppose someone has to." He couldn't tell if that was approval or simple observation. "Come on," he said. "Walk with me. Tell me what you saw in the streets. If there are pockets of men still fighting, we need to reach them before someone does something they can't take back." She nodded once. "There are some stubborn fools near the Street of Steel," she said as they moved. "Blacksmiths who liked the Lannisters' coin, and some gold cloaks who think they can melt back into the crowd. They're wrong. Try to bring them in alive," Jon said. "I'll encourage them," Arya replied. If they're smart, they'll listen. As they threaded back toward the wider avenues, Arya's eyes roved constantly, mapping, assessing. She had become something the old Arya would barely have recognized. All edges and insight and lethal focus. But when she looked at Jon for a heartbeat, he saw his little sister again. The girl who had hung on his arm when he left Winterfell, who had smiled when he'd given her needle. "You're different too," she said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. "You died. You bent the knee. And still you're here trying to put out other people's fires." "I've seen enough of what happens when no one tries," Jon said quietly. The Iron Throne looked smaller than Daenerys Targaryen had imagined. For years, it had loomed in her mind as a colossal thing, all razored edges and impossible height, a monument to her family's conquest and her father's madness. In Westerosi tales carried across the sea, the throne had seemed almost alive, a beast of iron and old blood. Up close, in the great hall of the Red Keep, it was still imposing. The blades of 1,000 defeated foes jutted and curled, fused by dragonfire into jagged, uncomfortable shapes. But it was also dusty. Cobwebs clung to the higher points. The steps leading up to it were worn in the center by generations of climbing feet. She walked slowly down the length of the hall, her footsteps echoing off stone. The great fires in the braziers had burned low. Only a handful of torches flickered on the walls, casting the throne into a shifting, uncertain half-light. She had not brought an escort. Grey Worm and Missandei and Yora had often flanked her in her mind's eye when she pictured this moment. But now that it was here, she found she could not bear witnesses. The Unsullied guarded the lower doors. The hall was hers alone. She stopped at the foot of the steps and looked up. Viserys had spoken of this throne often. He had described their father's seat with reverence and terror, describing the cuts Aerys had taken from its blades as if they were holy wounds. The throne had drawn blood from many Targaryens over the years. It was said that no one could sit it comfortably, that it was meant to remind kings that ruling was pain. Daenerys wondered, now, how much else Viserys had exaggerated and how much he had never understood. She climbed the steps one by one. Her knees felt heavier with each rise, though she was not physically tired. Drogon waited outside, perched on the outer parapet, his presence a constant warmth in the back of her mind. When she reached the level where she could stand almost face to face with the throne's highest arm, she lifted a hand. The metal was cold against her skin. She traced the edge of one blade, noting the way it had half melted, then hardened mid-drip. "This was never made for me," she murmured. Yet it was her right by blood. Her house had forged this monstrosity from the weapons of their enemies. Her father had sat here and whispered of wildfire. Her brother had dreamed of it and died with molten gold on his head instead. She could sit now, take her place, proclaim herself queen to whoever she chose to summon, demand oaths of fealty. She had the dragon. She had the city. Cersei Lannister was in chains. She thought of the courtyard below, of the way Cersei had straightened even as the manacles closed. That kind of pride had always seemed foolish to Daenerys when she saw it in others. Now she recognized a piece of it in herself. "There is more to this than sitting a chair," she said. The great hall did not answer. She stepped around the throne slowly, taking it in from every angle. From the side, it resembled a crouched predator. From behind, it looked like nothing so much as a pile of scrap metal welded into obstinate shape. The closer she looked, the less mystical it seemed. It was simply a thing men had made to frighten other men. She thought of the bells, of Jon's face when the first note rang out, of how close she had come, in that moment, to ignoring every plea and giving in to the fire roaring in her chest. Power was a kind of madness. The throne was a symbol, nothing more, but symbols had teeth. Daenerys laid her palm flat against the back of the throne and closed her eyes. For a moment she saw a different hall in another city, a pyramid in Meereen, where she had sat on a great stone seat while supplicants came one by one to lay their grievances at her feet. She had tried to do right by them. Sometimes she had succeeded, sometimes she had failed. Every decision had cost something. Her father had wanted to burn the city because it defied him. Cersei had burned the September because it threatened her. Daenerys had turned away from burning King's Landing not because she did not have the power, but because she did. That distinction mattered. It had to. "If I sit here," she said softly, "I will not be my father." The words felt like a promise she was carving into herself. She lowered her hand, straightened, and turned away from the throne without sitting. There would be time later for ceremonies and coronations and the question of what should be done with this ugly, potent relic. For now, there was a city full of frightened people and angry soldiers who needed a queen who walked among them, not a figure perched on high looking down. As she descended the steps, she heard footsteps at the far end of the hall. Jon Snow paused just inside the threshold of the great hall, letting his eyes adjust to the dimness. The last time he had walked this chamber, it had been in another life, another war. Then Cersei Lannister had sat on the Iron Throne, Euron Greyjoy leering at her side, the air thick with perfumed tension and barely concealed threats. Dragons had been words on parchment, distant rumors on a foreign sea. Now the throne stood empty. The air smelled of smoke and old dust. And Daenerys Targaryen was walking down from the dais, the light from the high windows tracing silver along her braids. "You found it then?" Jon said, his voice echoing more than he'd intended. Daenerys came to a stop halfway down the hall, midway between throne and door. Drogon's distant presence hummed at the edges of Jon's awareness, a reminder that they were never entirely alone. "I did," she said. "It's smaller than I thought." He glanced past her at the throne. "Still looks bloody big to me." She almost smiled. "You've never wanted it," she said. "No," he said simply. "Never." He took a few steps forward, then stopped again, uncertain how close to come. There was a distance between them that had nothing to do with the length of the hall. "The city is quieting," he said. "Most of the Lannister men have surrendered. There were some pockets of resistance, but Arya helped convince them." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Arya Stark is here?" "She came on her own," Jon said. "Like she always does. She's alive. She saw you spare the city." Daenerys nodded. "Good." There was more he could say about Arya's wariness, about the way the small folk flinched when shadows passed overhead. He swallowed those words, at least for now. "I've had the Lannister men disarmed and gathered under guard," he said instead. "Ser Janis Hill commands some of them. She seems sensible. Might be worth speaking to her when you decide what to do with the garrison." "I'll need commanders who know this city," Daenerys said. "Ones who can be trusted not to turn it against me." "That'll depend on what you do with them," Jon said. "If you hang every man who served the Lannisters, you'll have no one left who knows how this place works." "And if I forgive them all," she said, "what message does that send to those who butchered at my command in other cities? That I hold Westerosi lives more dear than theirs." He had no ready answer for that. Mercy, like justice, was never simple. "I'm not here to tell you how to rule," he said at last. "But I saw what you did today. You spared them when you didn't have to. People will remember that." "Will they?" she asked. Her gaze dropped for a moment, fingers twitching at her sides. "Or will they remember the dragon outside their windows, waiting to see if I change my mind?" "Both," Jon admitted. "Fear and hope aren't so different. People live somewhere between them most days." She let out a breath that might have been a laugh in another life. "You speak as if you've ruled a kingdom full of people before." "I haven't," he said. "Only a cold piece of the world at the end of everything, where there were more dead than living." She studied him. "You did what you could there, and failed," he said, "over and over, until one day I didn't." Pause. The weight of all their unspoken conversations pressed down between them. His parentage, her claim, the fragile, shifting alliance that had brought them this far. "Varys sent letters," she said quietly. "About you." "I know," Jon said. "Tyrion told me before you burned him." Her eyes hardened. "He betrayed me, sold my secrets to make another king." He believed he was saving people, Jon said. He believed he was choosing a different Targaryen, Daenerys replied. One who didn't scare him, one he could manage. Jon could not deny that some part of that was true. Varys had spoken to him of destiny, of better rulers, of heavy crowns. Jon had rejected it then. He still did now. The idea of sitting that throne behind her made his stomach twist. I don't want it, he said. I told him that. I'm telling you. I know you don't want it, Daenerys said. That's part of why they'd have given it to you. She descended the remaining steps until she stood a few paces from him. In the half-light, her face looked older than when he'd first seen her across the painted table on Dragonstone. Not in years, she was still young, but in miles traveled, choices made. You spared this city, he said again, needing her to hear it, to own it. I turned away from what I wanted to do, she said. That's not the same as sparing it out of the goodness of my heart. Don't make me into something I'm not, Jon. What are you then? He asked. Her gaze held his, unwavering. A woman with a dragon and a chance to build something better, she said. If I can keep from becoming the thing I hate along the way. He stepped closer now, close enough to see the fine tremor in her fingers, the soot lodged in the strands of her hair. He wanted, irrationally, to reach out and brush it away. You don't have to do it alone, he said. No? She asked. Who stands with me, then? A hand who betrayed me. A council of lords who wished for another king. A city that fears my fire. He drew a breath. You have me. She looked at him as if weighing something larger than the words. As what? She asked. As a lover? As a rival? As what? He thought of the great council they would have to call, of the northern lords and southern power brokers, of Sansa's cool eyes and Tyrion's sharp mind, of the need for some bridge between Dragonfire and dirt-floored huts. As someone who knows what it is to choose the hard path, he said. As someone who can stand between you and the rest of them when they're afraid. I don't want your throne, but I can watch over the realm, keep it from tearing itself apart while you try to fix it. The word had not yet been spoken, but it hung in the air between them, waiting. Warden. We'll need to speak with the others, Daenerys said slowly. With Sansa Stark, with Tyrion Lannister if I decide he lives, with the lords who still have armies to call. This can't be just you and I deciding the fate of millions in a dark hall. No, Jon said. It can't. But, she added, and there was a small, fierce light in her eyes now. It can start here. He nodded. Outside, the first uncertain shouts of men shifting from battle lines to uneasy patrol drifted up through the windows. The city was bruised, blackened at the edges, but it lived. For the first time since she had set sail from Essos, Daenerys felt the shape of a future that was not simply conquest followed by pyres. Come, she said, turning toward the doors. We'll go down to the people. Let them see us. Let them see that King's Landing still stands. Jon fell into step beside her, their footsteps echoing together in the long hall, the shadow of the Iron Throne stretching behind them like a memory that had not yet decided what it would become. Dawn came grudgingly to King's Landing. The light that filtered through the high, narrow window of the Red Keep's map room was a murky gray, made thicker by the smoke that still hung over the city. The table beneath it bore burns along one edge where a stray ember had fallen. The parchment map of Westeros weighed down by daggers and small carved lions and wolves and dragons. Daenerys Targaryen stood at the head of the table, opposite the doorway. She had not slept. Her hair had been hastily rebraided, smudges of ash still clinging near her temples, but her eyes were clear, hard. Drogon rested somewhere on the outer walls, his presence like a low, steady hum at the back of her thoughts. Jon Snow stood to her right, hands braced on the table's edge, leaning forward slightly as if he might hold the whole realm in place by sheer force of will. Davos Seaworth hovered near him, scratching at his beard, his expression one of tired wariness. Grey Worm stood at Daenerys' left, his spear planted upright beside him like a standard. His armor gleamed, freshly cleaned, but his face was drawn tight, the muscles in his jaw flexing and easing in a rhythm that spoke of anger held on a leash. Across from them, flanked by two unsullied, Tyrion Lannister stood with his wrists bound before him in simple iron manacles. The chain between them was not long, but it might as well have been a mile. "Reports from the lower city, Your Grace," Davos said, breaking the silence. "Fires are under control for now. Most of the Lannister men laid down arms as ordered. There were a few incidents." Daenerys's gaze flicked to him. "What kind of incidents?" "The kind that happen when men smell blood and fear and think no one's watching," Davos said. "We stopped what we could. Jon Snow here has been walking the streets like a bloody septon handing out sermons." Jon shot him a look, but said nothing. "Any of our men?" Daenerys asked quietly. "Unsullied, Dothraki, Northerners. Some Stormlanders tried to drag a girl into an alley," Jon said. "We took care of it." "How?" Grey Worm asked. Jon met his eyes. "We cut off the hand of the man who grabbed her," he said. "The others we put in chains. They'll stand judgment." Grey Worm's face did not change, but a small flicker lit in his eyes. Approval, perhaps, or simple recognition. "Good," he said. Daenerys nodded once. "It will be known," she said. "My rule is not an excuse for lawlessness. I will not have King's Landing remember this day as a sack." She paused, then added, "I spared this city. I will not let that mercy become weakness." "Mercy and weakness aren't the same," Jon said. "They are to those who only understand fear," Daenerys replied. Her gaze shifted to Tyrion. He looked smaller without his fine clothing and the easy confidence he wore like armor. His hair was tangled, and purple shadows bruised the skin beneath his eyes. He met her gaze, though, his chin lifting slightly in that stubborn way she knew too well. "You asked to be brought here," she said. "To speak." "I did," Tyrion said. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "I thought it better to die in a room full of people whose counsel you might yet heed than in some forgotten corner of the dungeons." "You assume you are already dead," Daenerys said. "I set free the brother of the woman who murdered your friend and your child," Tyrion said. "I warned one of your oldest enemies that your army was coming. I conspired, however feebly, to place another on the throne you consider your birthright. Yes, Your Grace, I assume I am already dead." Silence settled, heavy and uncomfortable. Davos shifted his weight. Grey Worm's hand tightened on his spear. "Why?" Daenerys asked at last. "Tell me why I should not have your head struck from your shoulders and mounted on the walls as a warning to those who would betray me." Tyrion's mouth twitched. "Because you don't want to be Queen of the Ashes," he said quietly. "You proved that yesterday. You turned your dragon away from the city. You let the bells ring." "I did that for them," Daenerys said, nodding toward the map, toward the impression of the city lying beyond. "Not for you. And yet I'm still breathing," Tyrion said. "Which suggests there is some small part of you that still expects me to say something worth hearing." Jon's fingers tightened on the table. "Tyrion," he said in warning. "No," Daenerys said. "Let him speak. For the last time, perhaps." Tyrion inclined his head. "You spared the city," he repeated. "That was mercy. It was also politic. The lords who remain will find it harder to rally behind a dead queen whose last act was to burn her own capital. Instead, they must reckon with a living one who can claim both conquest and restraint." "You helped those lords," Daenerys said. "You sent letters about Jon." Her gaze slid to Jon for the briefest moment before returning to Tyrion. "You told them of his parentage. You would have set him up in my place." "I told them the truth," Tyrion said, "that there was another with a claim by blood, one they might trust more not to burn them." "And yet it was I who did not burn them," Daenerys said softly. Tyrion's lips parted, then closed again. He looked, for an instant, almost ashamed. "I misjudged you," he said. "Or perhaps I judged you by the wrong measure. I've seen too many kings and queens. I expected you to bend or break as they did." "I bent once," she said, "to the people of Meereen, to the slavers. To compromise. It cost me dearly. She tilted her head. Do you wish now that I had chosen differently yesterday? That I had given in to the fire? No, Tyrion said. The word came out without hesitation. 7 hells, no. I've seen one city burn because of a mad monarch. I've no wish to watch another do the same. Then what is it you want? She asked. Tyrion's gaze dropped to the map. His shackled hands twitched, as if seeking a cup that wasn't there. I want you to keep choosing as you did. Yesterday, he said, to temper fire with something else. And I know that my presence makes that harder. I am a reminder of every betrayal, every misstep on this side of the sea. You admit you cannot be my hand, Daenerys said. I was never worthy of the title to begin with, Tyrion said. I tried. I failed. I will not beg for my life. But I will ask one thing of you. She waited. When you decide my fate, Tyrion said, decide it in the light. Let others see what kind of queen you mean to be. Put me on trial the way you'll put Cersei Lannister on trial. If you must kill me, do it after. Let the realm see that even dwarfs and traitors are given words before the sword. Daenerys studied him. You think a trial will save you, she said. I think a trial might save something of what you're trying to build, Tyrion said. As for me, my chances are poorer than a flea's in a brazier. Jon looked at Daenerys. He's right about one thing, he said. The realm's watching. If you want them to follow you, they need to see that you're not just another conqueror. They will see what I choose, Daenerys said, and judge me by it. Her hand drifted to the small carved dragon on the map. She moved it slowly, deliberately, from Dragonstone to the place marked as King's Landing, letting it settle there. Very well, she said. There will be a trial. For Cersei Lannister. For Tyrion Lannister. Her gaze flicked to Grey Worm. And for any others who must answer for what they have done. Grey Worm nodded. Unsullied will keep them secure, he said. And the judges? Davos asked carefully. Daenerys looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. We'll need more voices than ours, she said. Send ravens. To Winterfell. To the Vale. To the Riverlands, the Reach, Dorne. The Iron Islands. Her mouth tightened. Let those who still call themselves lords come to see what their world has become. And to decide what it should be. Cersei Lannister had known finer rooms. She had slept in feather beds beneath carved ceilings, bathed in tubs of perfumed water, walked on marble veined with gold. She had dined from plates of silver, drunk arbor wine from crystal goblets, worn silks dyed in colors only queens could afford. The cell was small enough that she could touch both walls if she stretched out her arms. The bench dug into her hips. The straw on the floor was old, flattened, smelling faintly of ammonia and mold. The only light seeped through a slit high in the wall, barred with rusted iron. Dust motes danced in it like tiny, mocking stars. She sat straight-backed on the bench, hands folded in her lap despite the manacles at her wrists. The plain gray dress they'd put her in hung unattractively from her shoulders, doing little to hide the thickness at her middle. She could feel the child there, a solid weight beneath her ribs. It wasn't far along enough to move yet, but its presence was undeniable, a quiet insistence that life went on even when walls closed in. You will have a new little lion, she had told herself the first time she'd felt the faint swell. Someone who will love you as they did. Someone you can keep safe. Safe. The word tasted bitter now. Footsteps echoed in the corridor beyond the door. Cersei tilted her head, listening. Not the heavy, indifferent tread of Unsullied, nor the clank and shuffle of ordinary guards. These steps were measured, familiar in a way that made the hairs on the back of her neck rise. The door's key scraped in the lock. It opened with a reluctant creak. For a moment, the light from the corridor made her squint. Then a figure resolved out of the brightness. Narrow, stooped slightly, with thinning hair and eyes that darted about as if weighing and cataloging everything they saw. Your Grace, Qyburn said, inclining his head. They allow me a brief visit. Cersei let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Some part of her had hoped and feared that it might be Jaime, stumbling in with that look of wounded devotion on his face. Instead, she had her Maester of Horrors. "You seem remarkably intact," she said. "I assumed they'd fling you from the walls with the other loyalists." "They debated it," Qyburn said, "but I am a man of useful skills. Their new queen's advisors felt it would be wasteful to kill me outright. Their new queen." The words slid under her skin like needles. "Have you come to gloat, then?" Cersei asked. "To see me reduced to this?" "Hardly," Qyburn said. "I come to advise, as I always have." Cersei laughed once, a rasping sound that echoed off the walls. "Your advice led me to wildfire," she said. "To the September, to this child." Her hands moved protectively over her abdomen without her willing them to. "And now to a cell. Wildfire destroyed your enemies at a critical moment," Qyburn said. "As for the child, that was no doing of mine, your grace." "No," Cersei said softly. "That was mine and Jaime's, like the others." She felt a sharp twist in her chest at the thought of him. Jaime, who had abandoned her at her moment of greatest need at the Dragonpit, only to come crawling back later, rain-soaked and desperate. Jaime, who had sworn he'd never leave her again. "Do they know?" she asked abruptly. "The Targaryen girl, the Starks, do they know I'm carrying a child?" Qyburn hesitated. "It is suspected," he said. "Varys had his spies. Tyrion spoke of it once. The Dragon Queen mentioned it in the courtyard." "Of course she did," Cersei muttered. The indignity of it struck her anew. The way Daenerys had used her child as a negotiating point, a token on the table. "And what do they plan for us, then?" "A trial," Qyburn said. "For you, for Tyrion Lannister. Perhaps for others, depending on what evidence is brought forth." "A trial," Cersei repeated. "How proper. Will they line up all those who have suffered and let them throw stones until someone grows bored?" Qyburn's lips twitched. Almost, but not quite, a smile. "They speak of witnesses," he said. "Of crimes and proofs. The Stark boy who sees too much is here. The Dragon Queen wishes to show Westeros that her justice is measured." "Justice," Cersei said. "Is that what they call it when they put a crown on a foreigner's head and call it peace?" "She spared the city," Qyburn observed. "There were caches of wildfire enough to make the September look like a candle. If she had chosen to ignite them." "She didn't," Cersei snapped. "Do you think I care? The game is over. She won." Qyburn's gaze dipped to her belly. "Not entirely," he said softly. Cersei followed his look, then glared at him. "You think they'll spare me for this?" she demanded. "That they'll let me live out my days in some tower, rocking a child while they rebuild my city around me? I think," Qyburn said carefully, "that violence is easier when one can tell oneself a story about monsters. You have given them many such stories. The September, the executions, the wars. The child complicates the narrative." "I am not a narrative," Cersei hissed. "I am Cersei of House Lannister. I was queen." "Yes," Qyburn said, "and in their eyes that is precisely the problem." He stepped back toward the door. "I must go, your grace. They do not trust me enough for long visits." "Cowards," she muttered. "At your trial," Qyburn said, pausing at the threshold, "you may wish to show remorse." Cersei stared at him. "Remorse," she repeated. "For what? Surviving men like my father? Taking what was mine before some dragonspawn whore could claim it? For the things that will weigh heaviest on minds already inclined to condemn you," Qyburn said. "You are not helpless, your grace. Not entirely. Words are still weapons. You taught me that." He slipped out, the door closing behind him with a final sounding click. Cersei stared at the place where he'd stood, then at her bound hands. Remorse. The idea was laughable. She felt no guilt for Essie. Izing power, no regret for striking at enemies who would have killed her first. She did feel something, though, a small, sharp ache when she thought of Tommen's quiet smile, of Myrcella's gentle hands, of Joffrey's cruel, eager eyes. All gone, all taken, and now this last chance curled inside her, unknowing, unseeing. Remorse would not save her. That much she knew. But perhaps, just perhaps, it might save something of what she had tried to build, even twisted as it had become. Or at least make her death mean more than a spectacle. She leaned back against the cold stone, closed her eyes, and began to think of what she would and would not say when they dragged her into the light. The cell they'd given Tyrion Lannister was marginally more comfortable than the black cells beneath the Red Keep. Marginally. The ceiling was high enough that he didn't feel smothered. There was a narrow slit of a window that admitted a line of light and a slice of blue sky. The stool was hard, but at least it existed. He'd known cells where the only place to sit was the floor. He cradled the flagon between his feet, rolling it back and forth. Water, not wine. His head felt clearer than it had in years, for all the good it did him. The sound of the key turning in the lock drew his attention. Tyrion straightened a little as the door opened. Jon Snow stood framed in the doorway, broad shoulders blocking some of the light. Davos Seaworth lingered just behind him, one hand resting on the jamb as if ready to pull the door closed again at a moment's notice. "Come to gloat?" Tyrion asked. "Or to fetch me for my execution? I should like to know whether to finish this," he nudged the flagon with a toe, "or leave it for the next poor bastard." "Queen Daenerys Targaryen agreed to a trial," Jon said. "For you, for Cersei Lannister. That was your doing." Tyrion shrugged. The manacles clinked. "I merely reminded her that public justice makes for better stories than private vengeance," he said. "She wishes to be remembered as a breaker of chains, not a breaker of cities. Trials fit better with that image." "And you?" Davos asked. "What image are you hoping for?" Tyrion Lannister, who tried very hard and failed very often, but occasionally managed not to make things worse, Tyrion suggested. "It lacks poetry, but I've always preferred ugly truths to pretty lies." Jon stepped into the cell, forcing Davos to move aside. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud. Tyrion felt a faint flicker of claustrophobia, but quashed it. "You knew she could burn this city," Jon said. "You thought she would." "I wasn't alone in that," Tyrion replied. "You saw it too. You could taste it in the air yesterday, fear, grief, the crackle of something about to snap. In her eyes." Jon's jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. "But she didn't," Tyrion said. "And that changes things. Not for me, perhaps. My head is still likely to part ways with my body. But for the realm? Yes, very much." Jon studied him. "You still think she can be a good queen," he said. "I think she can be better than most we've had," Tyrion said. "Which is damning with faint praise, I know." He sighed. "I also think she is one bad day away from deciding fear is easier than respect. Sitting a throne does that to people." "She didn't sit it today," Jon said. "I found her in the hall. She touched it, then turned away." Tyrion blinked, surprised despite himself. "Did she?" he murmured. "That's interesting. I told her she doesn't have to rule alone," Jon said. "That someone could stand between her and everyone else. Help her keep the peace while she tries to build what she wants to build." "Ah," Tyrion said. "And who did you have in mind for that noble, thankless task? Please don't say my name. Execution or no, I'd rather not." "Not you," Jon said. "Me." Tyrion stared at him. Then, despite everything, he laughed. A short, incredulous bark. "Of course," he said. "The man who wants no power volunteers to drown in it. You Starks are perverse creatures." "It's not a crown," Jon said, irritated. "I don't want her throne. I never have. But someone has to stand between the dragon and the rest of them. Someone who's not trying to take what's hers or tear it down." Davos made a low sound in his throat. "You're talking about more than being her consort," he said. "You're talking about what, exactly?" "A kind of warden," Jon said slowly, as if shaping the thought even as he spoke it. "Not just of the North. Of the whole realm. Someone sworn to its peace. who can go where queens and councils can't, who commands forces from every kingdom if needed, but doesn't sit a throne. Tyrion leaned back against the wall, examining him. "You realize," he said, "that what you're describing sounds suspiciously like a king in everything but name." "I don't want to be king," Jon said, exasperated. "Names matter, Tyrion, so does where you sit. If I'm not on that throne, if my power comes from a different oath, then I'm not her rival. I'm her shield, and the realms." "Assuming they accept such an arrangement," Davos said. "The lords, the North, your sister, Sansa Stark will not be delighted," Tyrion said dryly. "She has spent so long learning to navigate viper pits that the idea of handing part of the realm's power to her bastard half-brother, who turned out not to be a bastard after all, will chafe." Jon's expression closed. "I don't care about what I am by blood," he said. "I care about what happens next. If we don't find something new, something better, we'll be right back where we started. Another war, another mad ruler." Tyrion studied him for a long moment. "There is a reason," he said at last, "that men like me pinned their hopes on you. You say things like that and almost sound as if you mean them." "I do," Jon said. "Yes," Tyrion said softly. "That's the frightening part." He shifted his shoulders, the chains biting into his wrists. "If you mean to propose this Warden of the Realm notion to the Queen and to the Lords when they come, you'll need more than good intentions. You'll need structure, precedent, stories they can tell themselves about why this is less threatening than a second king." "You can help with that," Davos said. "I can," Tyrion agreed, "if she lets me live that long. If she doesn't, you'll have to muddle through without me, as countless fools have in the past." He smiled crookedly. "Take my advice now, then, while my head is still attached." Jon exhaled slowly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "We'll call a council," he said. "A great one. Let them all see what's happened. Help decide what comes next." "A great council. To decide the future of the realm," Tyrion said. "Yes, I suspect that might appeal to their sense of self-importance." "Very well. I'll give what counsel I can, when I'm allowed to speak." He paused, then added quietly, "I am sorry, for Varys, for the letters, for failing her. And you." Jon looked at him, eyes dark. "I know," he said. "It doesn't change what you did, but I know." The wind from the bay carried the smell of salt and smoke up to the gates of King's Landing. Sansa Stark reined in her horse just outside the main archway, her eyes sweeping over the blackened stone of the outer walls. Fresh scorch marks marred the battlements. The ground beyond the gate still bore the scuffs and gouges of battle. Hoof prints, broken spear shafts, dark stains that had not yet been washed away. She sat straight in the saddle, wrapped in a dark blue cloak lined with gray fur despite the warmth of the southern day. The direwolf of House Stark was stitched in pale thread at her breast. Her hair, long again, was braided in the northern style, interwoven with subtle metal rings. At her side, Arya Stark rode a lighter, wiry horse with effortless ease, her posture looser but no less alert. She wore simple leathers, a sword at her hip and a knife at her belt, as if she were more comfortable slipping into an alley than riding through a gate under scrutiny. Beyond the archway, a line of unsullied stood at attention, spears upright, shields at rest. Their discipline was a wall as solid as the stone behind them. Interspersed with them were northern soldiers, less uniform, more rough about the edges but steady. The air between the two groups had a brittle quality, as if one wrong word might crack it. Jon Snow waited just inside the gate. He had shed his heavy furs for lighter leathers, but the Stark look clung to him anyway. Dark hair, worn expression, the weight of far too much sitting on his shoulders. When Sansa saw him, something in her chest unclenched, just a little. He stepped forward as the guards parted, a brief flash of relief crossing his face before he schooled it into something more measured. "Sansa," he said. "Jon," she replied. For a moment, they simply looked at one another. The last time she had seen him, they had stood on the battlements of Winterfell, the dead pressing against the walls. So much had changed since then, and yet here he was, the same stubborn, haunted brother she remembered. Arya slid from her saddle with her usual cat-like grace. She grinned, just a little. "Told you he was still alive," she said to Sansa. "I never doubted it," Sansa said, though in truth she had done little else for weeks. Jon moved to Sansa's stirrup, offering a hand. She took it, letting him steady her as she dismounted. His grip was warm, solid. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. "It's still dangerous here." "I am Lady of Winterfell," Sansa replied. "And more than that, after all that's happened. The North has a voice in what comes next." Her gaze flicked to the Unsullied, then beyond, toward the hazy outline of the Red Keep. "I will not let that voice be spoken by others." "She's right, you know," Arya said. "Besides, it's too late to send us back." A ghost of a smile touched Jon's mouth. "I've learned better than to try," he said. He gestured toward the city. "Come," he said. "We've set aside quarters for you. They're mostly intact." His tone made it clear that intact was a relative term in this city. As they passed under the gate, Sansa felt the eyes of the small folk on her. Faces peered from doorways and windows, from behind hastily patched shutters. Some looked wary, others curious. A few held a flicker of hope, or something like it, when they saw the stark sigil. Word of the North's stand against the Night King had spread even here. "Is it true?" Sansa asked in a low voice as they walked. "She spared them?" "Daenerys Targaryen." "Yes," Jon said. "She could have burned it all. She didn't." Sansa studied him. "You sound surprised," she said. "I was," he admitted. "So was everyone else." "And yet you called for me," Sansa said. "For the other lords, to witness what comes next. We can't decide the future of the realm with only dragons and wolves in the room," Jon said. "The others will come. We'll hold a council. Hear the charges against Cersei Lannister, against Tyrion Lannister, and against Daenerys Targaryen?" Sansa asked. Jon's jaw tightened. "She is the queen," he said. It wasn't quite an answer. Arya snorted softly. "Queens can be judged," she said. "I've seen a few who deserved it." Sansa glanced at her. "You saw her in the sky, Arya, with the dragon." "I did," Arya said. "She looked ready to burn us all. Then she didn't." She shrugged. "I don't know what that makes her." "A complication," Sansa said. As they wound deeper into the city, past streets where soldiers of half a dozen banners kept uneasy watch, Sansa took in the damage. Some houses had collapsed, their upper stories blackened. Others stood untouched beside them, laundry hanging from windows, as if the owners had simply refused to acknowledge that the world had changed. "How are the people?" she asked. "Frightened," Jon said. "Hungry, angry, grateful. It depends who you ask. Some have already begun whispering that the Dragon Queen will show her true face eventually. Others are telling anyone who'll listen that she saved them from another mad ruler." "And you?" Sansa asked. "What do you whisper when no one's listening?" Jon hesitated. "I saw what she could have done," he said. "I saw what she chose instead. That means something, but it doesn't erase what she's lost, what she's capable of." Sansa filed that away. Jon's faith in people had always been both his strength and his weakness. He could see the best in them even when the worst was staring him in the face. "You spoke in your letter of a new office," Sansa said. "Something you might take on. Warden of the Realm." Jon looked faintly uncomfortable, as if she'd mentioned some private embarrassment. "It's just an idea," he said. "Tyrion helped give it shape. We'll talk about it when the others arrive." "Then I look forward to that," Sansa said. "Because the North will not bow to another Southern Queen as it did to the last. Not after all we've endured. If there is to be peace, it must be on different terms." Jon's shoulders slumped a fraction. "I know," he said. "That's what we're here to find." The chamber they chose for the council had once been a feast hall. Faded tapestries depicting long-forgotten Targaryens hunting stags and boars clung to the walls. The high ceiling arched overhead, smoke-stained and cracked in places where the years had worked their slow cruelty. A long table ran the length of the room, its surface scarred by knives and spilled wine, its legs carved with dragons, lions, and roses. Daenerys refused to hold the council in the throne room. "The Iron Throne is for coronations and proclamations," she said when Davos suggested it. "This is not that. Not yet." So they gathered here instead, at ground level, the queen among them rather than above. Daenerys sat at the head of the table, not on some raised dais but in an ordinary high-backed chair. Her presence, more than any carving, marked her as different. The silver of her hair, the intensity of her gaze, the subtle way the air seemed to tighten whenever she spoke. To her right, Jon Snow took the first seat, stiff-backed, hands clasped loosely in front of him. Sansa Stark sat beside him, composed and distant, her fingers smoothing an invisible crease in the table's worn surface. Arya Stark lounged near the end, not quite seated properly, as if she could spring to her feet at any moment. On Daenerys's left, Grey Worm stood rather than sat, his spear within arm's reach. Next to the empty chair reserved for Tyrion Lannister, Samwell Tarly sat with a stack of parchment, a quill, and a nervous expression. Bran Stark occupied a simple chair further down, his wheeled frame pulled close, his eyes far away yet disturbingly present. Davos Seaworth took a place near the middle, close enough to speak, far enough to fade into the background when needed. Gendry Baratheon had not yet arrived from Storm's End, nor Yara Greyjoy from the Iron Islands, nor any of the southern lords whose ravens had been sent with shaky hands. "We will have to begin without them," Daenerys said, her voice steady. "The realm does not pause because men are slow to mount their horses." "An unfortunate habit of the realm," Davos muttered. Sam's quill scratched across parchment, noting the attendees. He had taken it upon himself to record these meetings, a habit from the Citadel days he had never quite shed. "First," Daenerys said, "we must decide how these trials are to be conducted. I will not have them dismissed as mere show. The realm must see that even its rulers answer to something greater than their own desires." "And what is that something?" Sansa asked. Her tone was polite, but there was a knife edge beneath it. "The old laws? The faith? Your will?" Daenerys met her gaze without flinching. "Justice," she said. Sansa's lips curved in a faint, skeptical smile. "Justice looks different depending on who is holding the sword," she said. "Then let more than one hand hold it," Jon said. "That's why we're here, to decide together." Bran's eyes focused, the distant fog clearing. "We know what Cersei Lannister has done," he said. His voice was calm, almost detached. "We have records, counts. I have seen some of it myself." "What do you mean you've seen it?" Davos asked. Bran's gaze slid to him. "The past is not hidden to me," he said simply. "What has been done can be witnessed, even now." Sam shifted uncomfortably. Sansa's fingers stilled. "Strange tales aside," Sansa said, "we have enough from our own lives. Ned Stark's execution, the Red Wedding, the burning of the September, her attempts on her own brother's life, her dealings with Euron Greyjoy, her breaking of oaths. Crimes enough for 10 queens," Davos said. "No one will weep if she swings." "No one here," Arya said softly. "But there are those in this city who loved her, or thought they did. A trial gives them something to point to when they're trying to convince themselves they were wrong." Daenerys's eyebrows rose slightly. "You advocate a trial for her?" she asked. "You, who once carried a list of names to kill?" Arya's mouth quirked. "Killing people in the dark doesn't build much of a realm," she said. "I've done it. It solves problems. But you want to rule these people after. Best they see you playing by rules they understand." Jon glanced at her, surprised by the pragmatism, then nodded. "We call witnesses," he said. "We let Cersei speak. We let those she's harmed speak. Then we judge." "And who are we?" Sansa asked. "You and the Queen? Or this council? Or the lords who come?" "The lords," Daenerys said after a heartbeat. "If they are to accept the world I wish to build, they must have a hand in its first shaping." Her gaze swept the table. "We will sit in judgment as a body. The lords who come will add their votes. I will cast mine last." "And Tyrion Lannister?" Davos asked. "He's guilty of more complicated things. Betrayal, certainly, but also help. We will hear his case as well," Daenerys said. Her jaw tightened slightly. "He advised me. He failed me. He betrayed me. And yet he has also tried, in his own flawed way, to keep me from becoming what my enemies fear." "You're considering sparing him," Sansa observed. "I am considering," Daenerys said. "That is all." Sam raised his hand shyly, as if in a classroom. "If I may," he said. "In the past, when kings or queens held trials for high lords, they often called what we might call a great council. Not just for judgment, but to settle questions of succession. Governance. The Citadel has records." "And what questions would you have us settle?" Sansa asked. Sam swallowed. "We've all seen what happens when power rests entirely in the hands of one person," he said. "Mad kings, weak kings, cruel queens. Perhaps we could put some of that power in other hands. A council, a warden of the realm." All eyes turned to Jon. He shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden focus. "It's just an idea," he said. "No, it's more than that," Sansa said, eyes narrowing. "You would take on this role? This Guardian between queen and realm?" "I don't want a crown," Jon said. "I never have, but I've seen enough war. If there's a way to keep peace without putting all the burden on one person, we should try." "And if the burden crushes you instead?" Arya asked quietly. "Then I'll bear it," Jon said. "Better me than someone who would use it to hurt people." Daenerys studied him, feeling the weight of the moment. Here, in this smoky hall, with too few people and too many uncertainties, they were sketching the outline of a new order. "A great council," she said slowly, "to judge Cersei Lannister, to decide the place of this warden, to set the terms by which the North and the other kingdoms will live with my rule." Her gaze settled on Sansa. "Would the North attend such a council?" "We are here," Sansa said. "We will listen. We will speak. Whether we accept what is decided is another matter." "Fair enough," Davos murmured. "One step at a time." The courtyard had been swept clean for the occasion, though no amount of scrubbing could erase all traces of blood. The old gallows had been taken down years ago, after Robert's rebellion, when the Baratheon king decided he preferred his executions more private. In their place, a simple platform of rough-hewn planks had been raised against one wall, a line of chairs placed upon it. Daenerys sat at the center of that line, not elevated much above the rest. Her chair bore no special carvings, but her presence marked her as the focal point. To her right, Jon Snow sat, his posture stiff, his eyes scanning the crowd as much as the proceedings. To her left, Sansa Stark sat with hands folded neatly in her lap, her face composed. Beside them sat Davos Seaworth, Samwell Tarly, Gendry Baratheon, arrived overnight, still smelling faintly of salt and horse, and a grim-faced representative from the Vale. Bran Stark had been placed in a chair slightly apart, his gaze distant, his hands resting on the armrests of his wheeled seat. In front of the platform, a space had been cleared. The stone there was worn and slightly discolored, as if many feet had stood in that exact spot over the years, awaiting judgment. Cersei Lannister was brought into that space in chains. She had been dressed in a plain, clean gown of dark green, her hair combed and smoothed. The crown was gone. Without it, she looked smaller, but there was still a coiled tension in her shoulders, a steadiness in the way she placed her feet as she walked. The crowd around the edges of the courtyard was a mix of faces. Lannister guards now disarmed and wearing simple clothing. Small folk who had been allowed in by lottery from the city, unsullied standing as a stern border between watchers and judged. Murmurs rippled through them as Cersei appeared. "Cersei of House Lannister," Sam read from a parchment, his voice trembling only slightly. "Called Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, stands accused of crimes against the realm and its people. Crimes, Cersei said, her voice cutting through the murmur. Or actions taken as a ruler in times of war? That is what we are here to decide, Daenerys said. Her tone was cool, formal. You may speak, others will speak. We will judge. And who are we? Cersei asked, letting her gaze drift along the line of chairs. A foreign queen with a dragon, a bastard turned prince, a northern girl who learned her courtesy from a man who lost his head for it, a smuggler, a blacksmith's bastard, a crippled boy who stares at people like they're ghosts. This is the court that will judge me. It is, Sansa said calmly, along with those they represent. The North, the Riverlands, the Stormlands, the Dothraki, the Unsullied, the people of this city. Cersei's lips curled. The people of this city would have starved without me, she said. It was my gold that fed them, my soldiers who kept the streets safe when the sparrows crawled out of their holes. The September of Baelor, Sam read, forcing his voice over hers. The trial by wildfire in which hundreds perished. The executions of Eddard Stark and other northern lords. The orchestration, in concert with House Frey, of the massacre at the Twins known as the Red Wedding. The attempted assassination of Tyrion Lannister. The alliance with Euron Greyjoy which brought foreign raiders to our shores. The use of the gold cloaks and Kingsguard to oppress small folk and silence dissent. With respect, Davos murmured. We could be here all day if we list everything. Then pick the ones that matter most to the people watching, Arya said from her place near the edge of the platform. She had refused a formal chair, preferring to stand slightly apart, a shadow among shadows. Do you deny these acts? Daenerys asked Cersei. I deny nothing I have done, Cersei said. I was queen. I did what I thought best for my family and my city. I destroyed threats. I punished enemies. I survived in a world that wished me dead from the moment I was born with golden hair instead of a sword in my hand. And your people? Jon asked. Were they threats? The ones in the September? The ones crushed in the streets when you fought your wars with your brothers. There are always casualties, Cersei said. In your war against the dead, did none of your own people fall? Did you not ask them to bleed for your cause? That was a war for life itself, Sansa said sharply. You burned your own city for power. The sparrows would have destroyed us, Cersei snapped. They threatened my son, my grandchildren. They sneered at the very idea of nobles ruling. They would have dragged us all into the dirt in the name of their gods. I did what had to be done. Bran spoke then, his voice quiet but carrying. You had other options, he said. You could have fled. You could have negotiated. You could have sacrificed yourself instead of them. Cersei's eyes flicked to him, something like unease showing for the first time. You speak of things you know nothing about, boy, she said. I know what you thought when you watched the September burn, Bran said. I know the taste of your satisfaction, the way you felt when the High Sparrow and Marjorie Tyrell and all the rest vanished in green flame. I know the chill in you when you realized Tommen was not among the dead, and then the hollow when you saw him step from that window. Cersei's face drained of color. For a heartbeat, she looked as if someone had struck her. How? She began, then snapped her mouth shut. The point is this, Daenerys said, seizing the moment before it twisted further. You have ruled through fear and fire. You used wildfire on your own people. You broke oaths and shattered trusts. Do you feel any remorse for that? Cersei drew herself up. The courtyard seemed to shrink around her. I regret that my children died, she said. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen. I regret that I trusted men who betrayed me. My father, my brother, the fools who filled them. Why, court, I regret that this story did not end the way I wanted. Her gaze hardened. But remorse? For doing what I had to do to protect my family, my power, my city? No. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some faces turned away. Others looked at her with a kind of grim admiration. Thank you for your honesty, Davos said under his breath. The next name Samwell read out caused a fresh ripple of noise in the courtyard. Jaime of House Lannister, he announced. Called Kingslayer, called Oathbreaker, called... We can skip the titles, a rough voice interrupted. Jaime Lannister stepped into the cleared space, flanked by 2 northern guards. His wrists were bound, though less tightly than Cersei's had been. His golden hair was tangled and dirty, his jaw rough with several days' growth. Bruises ringed his throat in a pattern that suggested fingers, not rope. He moved with the wary gait of a man who had recently been thrown from a horse and then dragged the rest of the way. The news of his capture on a minor road south of the city had arrived only that morning. A patrol of Northmen had found him riding alone, cloaked and hooded, trying to slip into King's Landing under cover of darkness. Cersei's eyes had widened at the sight of him. For a brief instant, hope flared, unguarded and bright. Then she saw the chains, and something else settled over her features. A complicated weaving of relief, anger, and bitter recognition. Jaime, she said. He looked at her, and Jon Snow was struck by the depth of feeling in that single gaze. Love, twisted and worn, but still fierce. Regret, resignation. Cersei, he replied. Jaime Lannister, Daenerys said. You stand here not as the accused, but as a witness. For the moment. Speak truthfully, and that may remain the case. Truthfully, Jaime repeated. Truth is a slippery thing in King's Landing, Your Grace. I've seen men killed for telling it and killed for hiding it. Perhaps today we can try something different, Davos suggested. Tell us what you know of your sister's reign, of her choices, of the wildfire, of the war. Jaime's mouth twisted. Where would you like me to begin? With the Mad King my sword put down, or the Mad Queen I helped prop up in his place? Cersei's nostrils flared. You came back to me, she said. You crossed half the realm to stand at my side. Jaime's shoulders sagged a fraction. I did, he said, because I couldn't quite let go of the idea that there was still something worth saving. In you, in us. He turned his gaze to the platform. I killed Daenerys Targaryen because he meant to burn this city, he said, speaking more loudly now. He had caches of wildfire hidden everywhere. In the September, under the streets, beneath the Red Keep. He meant to watch King's Landing become a funeral pyre rather than let Robert have it. Bran nodded once, slowly, as if confirming something only he could see. I cut him down, Jaime continued. For that, they named me Kingslayer, Oathbreaker. They spat at me in halls and whispered behind my back. But I saved this city. You also pushed my brother from a tower window, Bran observed. Jaime flinched, color rising to his cheeks. Yes, he said. I did. I've done many things I'm not proud of. He looked at Cersei again. When she burned the September, he said, I wasn't here. I was in the Riverlands trying to bring the war to a close. I came back to find the rubble and the ashes and Tommen gone. A shadow crossed his face. I asked her how she could do it, he said. How she could use the very thing I damned myself to stop. She told me it was necessary. For power. For us. Was it? Jon asked. Jaime let out a breath that might have been a laugh. Nothing that kills your last living child can be called necessary, he said. But try telling that to someone who thinks the world owes them everything. Careful, Cersei murmured. You're talking about yourself now. He ignored her. When the dead marched south, he said to the platform, I rode to Winterfell, alone, to stand with the living. I broke my oaths to Cersei, such as they were. I believed she would send her armies. She lied. I believed she would see reason when dragons landed on her walls. She did not. And yet you returned, Sansa said. Her voice was cool, but there was a flicker of something like curiosity in her eyes. After all that, you came back. I did, Jaime said, because I feared what she'd do when cornered, because I thought stupidly that I might make some difference. Soothing words, a staid hand. He shook his head. But by the time I reached the city, the Golden Company was already breaking. The Scorpions were burning. The bells were beginning to ring. He glanced up at Drogon's silhouette faintly visible over the wall. Your queen had won, and she had not burned us. Not yet. Cersei made a soft, derisive sound. Jaime's gaze hardened. I would have gotten you out, he said to her. If I could. Out of the city. Away from the worst of it. I had a boat. Plans. But it was too late. The gate was held. I was taken. And now you stand here denouncing me, Cersei said. Is that how the story goes, then? You, the repentant brother, and I, the monster. I'm not denouncing you, Jaime said quietly. I'm telling the truth. You had choices, Cersei. You always did. You chose power over everything else. Even us. Their eyes locked. For a heartbeat, the courtyard fell silent enough that Jon could hear the distant cries of gulls over the harbor. Do you regret anything? Sansa asked. Truly? Not just the parts that hurt you. Jaime hesitated. I regret pushing a boy from a window, he said. I regret standing by while my children grew up learning cruelty instead of kindness. I regret not leaving this city with Brienne of Tarth when I had the chance. He swallowed. And I regret that I couldn't stop you, he added softer to Cersei, from becoming this. Cersei's face went very still. For the first time, tears glinted in her eyes, though they did not fall. Night fell more softly on King's Landing than it had on Winterfell. The cold here was gentler, the air damp with sea mist rather than knife-sharp frost. Still, the darkness had teeth. It crept into alleys and hearts, made fears swell larger than they were in daylight. Daenerys stood on the balcony of her temporary chambers in the Red Keep, hands resting on the stone balustrade. Below, the city sprawled in a patchwork of flickering lights and deeper shadows. Lanterns swung from doorways. Torches flared at intersections where patrols crossed paths. The faint sound of distant singing drifted up, some tavern where men sought to drink away the memory of battle. Drogon was a dark shape against the lighter stone of the outer wall. His massive form coiled around a tower like some great, brooding cat. His eyes glowed faintly red in the gloom. He rarely slept deeply these days. Neither did she. The door behind her scraped softly. She didn't turn immediately. She knew that tread. Your Grace, Jon Snow said quietly. Jon, she replied without looking back. He came to stand beside her after a hesitation, leaving a respectful distance between them. The night air ruffled his hair. He smelled faintly of leather and wood smoke. The trial will continue tomorrow, he said. There are others who wish to speak. Small folk, septons, a few Lannister officers. Let them, Daenerys said. The more who speak, the clearer the pattern becomes. Some of the small folk asked if they could speak for her, Jon said. For Cersei, Daenerys glanced at him. For her, she repeated. She had them fed when others might have left them to starve, Jon said. Or so they say. She punished some men who preyed on them, closed the city's gates when Euron's ships threatened the harbor. People remember those things, even when they're weighed against the September. The war. Daenerys turned her gaze back to the city. People remember what they choose to remember, she said. The parts that make their lives make sense. And what will they remember of you? Jon asked. She thought of the bells, of Drogon's shadow over the rooftops, of the sight of her on his back, fire at her command. That depends on what we do next, she said. If I have you cut off Cersei's head tomorrow, they will remember a queen who brought her enemy low and ended a war. If I spare her, they will call me weak, or mad, or both. If I chain her in some tower for the rest of her days, she becomes a symbol, a living ghost haunting everything I do. There's another choice, Jon said. Exile? She asked. Let her slip away to plot again? No, not exile, he said. A clean ending, but not as spectacle, not as wildfire and bells. Quiet justice, no crowds, no songs. She watched him in profile. His face was drawn, but his eyes were steady. He had seen more death than most men twice his age. You would have me kill her, she said. But do it quietly. I would have you do what you must, he said, but not make a feast of it. She's admitted what she's done. She feels no remorse for the worst of it. Leaving her alive here would be dangerous. For you, for the realm. He paused. But killing her in front of everyone here in this courtyard, that makes her a martyr to some, a spectacle to others. It makes this all about you and her dragons and lions, when it should be about what comes after. Daenerys sighed, leaning her elbows on the stone. You sound like Tyrion, she said. Maybe he was right about something, Jon said. For once. She let herself smile briefly. The expression felt unfamiliar on her face these days. What do you want, Jon? She asked, surprising herself with the bluntness of the question. He frowned. I told you. Not for the realm, she said. For yourself. He was silent for a long moment. The city murmured below them. Drogon shifted, stone grinding under his claws. I want people to stop dying for other people's pride, he said at last. I want kids who've never held a sword not to have to learn how to in case some lord gets it into his head to take a castle. I want the North to be safe. He shook his head. I want things people don't get in this world. She looked at him. And if this Warden of the Realm thing we've started to sketch helps with that? She asked. If it puts you in the middle of every conflict, every crisis, every stubborn lord with dreams of glory, then so be it, he said. I've been in the middle of worse. She turned fully now, resting one hip against the railing, facing him. You would stand between me and them, she said. Between dragons and wolves and lions and krakens. Yes, he said. Not as king, she pressed. He shook his head. No. Her eyes searched his, looking for some flicker of ambition, some hidden desire to sit the throne he refused. She found only weariness and a stubborn, quiet resolve. You trust me, she said, and yet you plan for the day you may have to stop me. He met her gaze. I trust the part of you that turned away from the city, he said. I also know how thin a line that can be. We've both seen what grief and power do to people. She nodded slowly. Then we plan together, she said. A council. A warden. A realm where power doesn't rest entirely in one hand. If I am to be queen, I will not be my father's kind of queen. She looked out over the city one more time. Tomorrow, we will end Cersei Lannister's story, she said, quietly, with a headsman and a block, not dragons and wildfire. Jon nodded. I'll see to it, he said. No crowd, just witnesses enough to say it happened. And then, Daenerys said, we begin the harder work. Dawn had barely brushed the tops of the Red Keep's towers when they brought Cersei Lannister out for the last time. Mist clung to the courtyard stones, softening edges, blurring shapes. The air was cool, almost chill, a thin veil of cloud muting the early light. The city beyond the walls was only beginning to stir. The usual cacophony of shouts and carts and clanging hammers had not yet begun. There was no assembled crowd, no pressing throng. Only a small group stood near the rough wooden block set at the courtyard's center. Daenerys Targaryen wore no crown, no embroidered finery. She had dressed simply, in dark leathers and a cloak the color of storm clouds. Jon Snow stood slightly behind and to her right, sword at his hip, face closed. Sansa Stark stood a little apart, hands wrapped around her own arms as if warding off a chill. Jaime Lannister had been allowed to attend under guard, his chains lighter, his expression heavy. The headsman waited near the block, his axe resting with its blade in the straw, his hood pulled low. He shifted his weight, looking like a man who had executed many in his life and taken no lasting pleasure in any of it. Cersei walked unaided, though the shackles around her ankles forced her steps to be shorter than usual. The plain dress she wore fluttered slightly in the breeze, drawing subtle attention to the roundness at her middle. She stopped a few paces from the block and looked around, taking them all in. Her gaze lingered on the empty walls. No crowd, she observed. No spitting small folk. No nobles pretending not to enjoy the spectacle. "This isn't a spectacle," Daenerys said. Her voice was calm, but sharper than the morning air. "It's a sentence, spoken behind closed doors," Cersei said. "You mean to take my head but not my story. Clever." "You were judged," Jon said, "by lords and people who heard what you've done. You were found guilty of ruling as every king before me has ruled," Cersei said, "only less stupidly. Of burning hundreds so you could rid yourself of enemies," Sansa said, eyes cold. "Of planning to use wildfire again, even knowing what it did to your own son. Of breaking oaths and slaughtering guests. Of turning this city into a stage for your pride." Cersei's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. Daenerys stepped closer, stopping just out of reach. "I could have had you torn apart in the streets," she said. "I could have paraded you through the city in chains. Let the people you failed throw stones until you fell. Part of me wanted that. I would have preferred it," Cersei said. "At least then I'd know I mattered." "You mattered," Daenerys said quietly. "Too much. You shaped this realm with fear and fire. That ends today." She gestured to the block. "Kneel," she said. Cersei looked at the block, then back at Daenerys. For the first time, something like real fear flickered in her eyes, not at death itself. She had brushed close to that enough times, but at the finality of it, the way it closed off every possibility. She hesitated. Jaime took a step forward, the guards at his side tightening their grips on his arms. "Cersei," he said. She looked at him. Whatever passed between them in that look was theirs alone. "Do you regret nothing?" Jaime asked softly. "Not one choice you made when there was another path?" Cersei's mouth trembled. For an instant, the mask slipped, revealing the girl she had been once. Ambitious, hungry, desperate to be seen in a world that had never valued daughters. "I regret trusting anyone who wasn't us," she said. "I regret believing this city could ever love me. I regret that I wasn't born with a sword in my hand instead of a womb." She drew herself up. "But I do not regret surviving," she said, "even now." Then, with a small, almost imperceptible shudder, she sank to her knees before the block. The headsman stepped forward, lifting his axe. Daenerys watched, her face set. She had ordered death before. She had watched men burn. She had given the Dracarys command more times than she could count. But this felt different somehow, smaller and larger all at once. This was not a fiery explosion that would ripple out through the city, nor a dragon's roar echoing across the bay. This was a single stroke in a quiet courtyard at dawn. A queen unmade as quickly as any common criminal. "Any last words?" Davos asked quietly. He had come as a witness, standing near Jon. Cersei lifted her head as far as the hands on her shoulders allowed, her gaze fixed on Daenerys. "Do not think they will love you for this," she said. "They will fear you. They may even obey you. But they will not love you." Daenerys held her gaze. "I know," she said. "Love has cost me enough." Cersei's mouth twitched, as if she might laugh. Instead, she lowered her head to the block. The axe fell. It was not clean, no stroke ever truly was, but it was quick. A spray of dark blood, a thud, a collective intake of breath. The mist swallowed the sound as if the city itself did not yet know what had been taken from it. Jaime closed his eyes. Sansa watched without flinching. Jon swallowed hard, his knuckles white on the hilt of his sword. Daenerys felt the moment like a weight settling in her chest. Cersei Lannister was gone. The woman who had haunted her advance, who had murdered her friend and her child, was now just another body cooling on stone. "See to it," she said to the guards. "She is to be buried. No spikes, no public display." As they moved to obey, she turned away, her cloak swirling. "We send ravens today," she said to Jon, her voice steady by sheer force of will. "The Great Council must be called. The realm needs to know that this chapter is closed." Jon nodded. "And the next one begins," he said. The Dragonpit had seen dragons die. Once, it had been a grand structure, its great dome a marvel of Targaryen engineering, its pens filled with chained, restless beasts whose very presence had kept the realm in line. Then, in a fit of fear and practicality, it had been torn down, its roof collapsed, its glory reduced to rubble. Now it was being reborn as something else. Workers swarmed over the cracked stone floor, clearing debris into neat piles. Carpenters hammered together platforms and benches. Tents were raised against the sun, their canvas flapping in the breeze. Banners were being unfurled and tested, their colors stark against the pale, broken walls. The direwolf of House Stark, the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen, the kraken of House Greyjoy, black on gold, the sun and spear of Dorne, the moon and falcon of the Vale, the rose of the Reach, the crowned stag of House Baratheon, newly restitched for Gendry's claim. Daenerys stood at the edge of the arena, her boots on ancient, cracked stone. Jon Snow stood beside her, his cloak snapping in the wind. The smell of dust, sweat, and old ash hung in the air. "This place has always been about power," Daenerys said softly. "First for those who rode dragons, then for those who killed them. Now we build a council here." "Fitting," Jon said. "A place where chains were broken and forged." She glanced at him. "Do you think they'll come?" she asked. "All of them." "They're already on the road," he said. "Ravens came this morning. Yara Greyjoy has left Pike. The Dornish are mustering. The Tyrell lands may be in disarray, but there are enough Reach Lords to send one or two. They smell a chance to shape the future. Men like that always come." "Men," Daenerys repeated. "And women." She thought of Sansa's cool eyes, of Arya's sharp-edged grin, of Yara Greyjoy's blunt words at the Dragonpit before. The world was changing in ways Westeros had not yet fully grasped. "And when they do," Jon said, "we'll ask them to do something no one has ever truly done before. Share power. Accept a queen who did not inherit this city peacefully. Accept a warden who owes fealty to the realm rather than a single king. They'll expect you to be that king," Daenerys said. "Some already do." "I'll tell them what I've told everyone else," Jon said. "I don't want it. They can fight among themselves for crowns. I'll be too busy trying to keep them from killing each other." She studied his profile. "You know they may not believe you," she said. "Men who have chased power all their lives cannot easily imagine someone turning it away." "Then we'll show them," Jon said. "In what we build, in how we act." Workers hoisted a heavy beam into place with a chorus of grunts. The structure of a central platform began to take shape in the center of the pit, a place where speakers could stand and be seen from all sides. "This will decide more than just the shape of my rule," Daenerys said. "The North's place, the fate of the Iron Throne, whether dragons are seen as protectors or threats." "We've already melted one symbol," Jon said, thinking of the Iron Throne and her hand on the metal. "We can melt others if we have to." She smiled faintly. "You would have me spend all my dragonfire on furniture and flags," she said. "Better that than on people," he replied. She looked out over the pit. Men moved like ants, arranging seats according to plans Davos and Sam had drafted. Places of honor, places of compromise, places where old enemies would be forced to sit side by side. "Tomorrow," she said, more to herself than to him, "this place will be full of those who have lost brothers and sons and fathers to this war, to all the wars before it. They will come with grievances as old as the wall and as fresh as yesterday. And we'll ask them to lay those grievances aside," Jon said, "or at least set them down long enough to build something new." Daenerys drew in a long breath, tasting dust and history. "I crossed the narrow sea to take back what was stolen from my family," she said. "Now I stand here preparing to share what I win with those who once cheered my enemies. It is not the ending Viserys would have imagined." "No," Jon said. "It's better." She thought of the fire she had not loosed on the city, of the queen she had executed quietly at dawn, of the man beside her who was willing to bear a burden he did not want because someone had to. "Come," she said, turning away from the edge. "We have speeches to write, terms to draft, and a realm to convince that dragons and wolves can rule without devouring everything in their path. Jon fell into step beside her, and together they walked back toward the heart of the keep, leaving the workers to their labor in the Dragonpit. Above them, Drogon wheeled once in the pale sky, a dark crescent against the light, before gliding toward the city he had spared.